All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar from the Community Data Program called Exploring Canadian Business Counts. My name is Mary. I'm part of the Community Data Program team, and I'm hosting today's call. So today we welcome 3 presenters who are all going to introduce you to this data set. We have Adam Brescacin from Statistics Canada, and he's going to introduce this Canadian business counts to you and also answer some of your questions. And then we're going to hear from 2 of your colleagues who are working with Canadian business counts on a pretty regular basis. So we have Nicole Mullings from the Calgary Economic Development, and we have Tiffany Boening from the County Simcoe. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our presenters, and then I'm going to pass it over to them. If you have any questions for the presenters or for CDP, you can just type them into the chat box on the right of your screen. I'll be keeping an eye out for them and interrupt our presenters with your questions or facilitate those questions as we go. I also have on the call with me Mike Diter. Mike's our resident data purchase and access guy, so he can definitely answer any of your questions if it comes to looking at what's actually in our catalog or any of the inner workings of the CDP part of the data. So we have Adam is going to be presenting first. He is the Data Dissemination Officer for Data Integration Infrastructure Division at Statistics Canada. He's been there for about 4 years, and he's got about 8 years of work in statistics. And it's important to note that he's actually the subject matter specialist for Canadian business counts. Okay, so he is our guru on the StatsCan side. Then we're going to have Nicole Mullings. She's going to share some of the work that she is working on and produces for the Calgary Economic Development. There she is the manager of business intelligence and research. She's been doing this for about 5 years, and she's got a master's of library and information studies. And then we're going to hear from Tiffany Boening. She's from the Economic Development Officer at the County of Simcoe. So Tiffany's been there for about a year, and her focus is really on the data in the Economic Development Office. So she's the data guru there, and her background is a master's in economics. So these people are all going to be totally qualified to answer any of your data questions. And Tiffany's actually going to walk you through a different kind of a presentation, looking at some questions that they receive through their office and how they go about answering those. So Canadian business counts is a really interesting data set because we actually have members in CDP that are members because they want this data set. This is their primary reason for joining the program. And then we also have other people who use it as a complement to other census tables and statistics that they work with. And then there's also people in the program who have never looked at it and wouldn't even know what to do with it. So I expect we have quite a mix of you. I know there are some people you mentioned that work regularly with Canadian business counts, and so you're here to see if there's some other ideas of things you can do with it or get some tips, and that's great. Welcome, thank you for coming. For those of you who are using it regularly, feel free to chime in with answers into the chat box, into the discussion. If you have anything else to add, that's wonderful. And for those of you who have never really dived into it, thanks for coming, and we hope this does give you a general introduction without scaring you away from using the data set. So without any more introduction, I'm going to bring up Adam's presentation. So Adam's going to work from a PowerPoint today. And then after Adam, we're going to have 2 screen shares from Nicole and then from Tiffany. So if you can get this, make sure the Adobe webinar window is full screen, because particularly when we get into the sharing parts, when you see the screen shares, you'll need to be able to see all the little parts of them. All right, so take it away, Adam.
Thank you, Mary, for the introduction.
We can't hear you, Adam. Can you hear us?
So
there you are. Great. You're welcome.
Can you hear me okay now? Thank you for the introduction, Mary.
Yes, now you're good. Thank you.
So as she said, I am Adam, and I'm from DIID. We are better known still as the Business Register, though. We're the Business Register folks. So I'm just going to give you a presentation. There's quite a few slides. I'll just be going through some of them quickly, but I would like them all to be here so you can check on them after if there's any additional info you like. So the overview of the business register. We're going to go in the history, definition, mandate, maintenance, and some future information about it, as well as users of the data. So I would refer to internal clients, external clients, media, and I know everyone will be interested in COVID-19 impacts. That will be at the end of the presentation. Just a little history. The register was originally built in the 1980s, but its last redesign was in 2008. Definition and mandate is to collect, compile, and maintain a full repository of businesses in Canada in order to provide a complete, unduplicated, and up-to-date frame for economic programs, support data integration.
Adam, can you still hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Cut in and out a couple of times, and now we can't hear you anymore.
You've lost my audio?
Sorry, Adam?
Okay, Mary, can you hear me now? Because I haven't changed anything on my phone.
I can hear you now, even though you haven't changed anything.
Okay, so I see from the comments that it seems that
obviously some people are hearing you. So
the people can hear me, so I'll continue for now. All right, so where were we? The snapshot of the entire business population in Canada.
Everybody else can hear you. We're good. Go ahead. Thanks, Adam.
Perfect. So that's important that the business register at any point in time would be a snapshot of the business population in Canada. So our specific counts and data releases, that would be how the business register would look on that date. It's constantly changing, constantly expanding. All businesses engaged in producing goods and services in Canada, including farm operations, would be included. And some information we would have would be names, addresses, employment, revenue, assets, industry, which is NAICS codes, etc. So the uses of the business register: sampling frame for all economic surveys at Statistics Canada. That's its main purpose, with consistent classification and stratification. And we also have data integration and record linkage, as well as data source for business demographic data. Production and maintenance, just a little information on that. A lot of our information would come from administrative data from the Canada Revenue Agency. This data would include business number, registration files, as well as TD7, T1, T2, and GST tax forms. Statistics Canada's value-add activities are industrial and other classifications. So 90% of the businesses on the BR would currently have a NAICS classification code, and we're constantly working to add them to the remaining 10%, as well as business profiling activities and survey feedback. So as you can see in this little table on the side, it would be interesting to note that the far majority of businesses, 95%, would just be simple businesses. So that means it just has one legal structure, but the revenue is generated by that small percentage of the profiled large and complex businesses. So data quality, this is just a little information throughout the years. Many methodological changes have occurred, and that's why we don't recommend using our data for a time series. And we constantly are running quality control programs that will introduce new changes. So just an example of one change that would make a big impact would be in December 2014, we started to include all businesses that were previously unclassified. So that would be any business, that 10% that didn't have a NAICS code would have not been included before. And then it started to be included, and you could see there's a jump of our numbers right there around 2014. It's very important to note too, these two lines here, the red line represents all businesses with employees, while the other line represents total. You can see the businesses with employees is it stays very similar throughout the years. The methodological changes haven't impacted as much, but our non-employee businesses, so much of the smaller businesses, would see many shifts throughout the years. So some future projects that we have going on in my division right now would be the longitudinal business database. This is very interesting as we're looking for a way to actually track businesses throughout the year and implement some changes in previous years to reflect the methodology. So it would be able to be used as a time series. This is something that we're hoping to have 2021, but it may go beyond then. And also the Statistical Register Integration Project, it's the integration of division, building, business, and social registers all into one register to allow more collaboration amongst them. So internal clients for users of the business register by different subject matters. As I said before, the primary use is being a survey sampling frame. So there would be 232 different businesses surveys currently attached to the business register, with some including the retail trade survey, manufacturing survey, and asphalt roofing survey for a more specific one. And there's just some information on the different levels of all the different surveys below. Data integration. Core Statistical Register of Statistics Canada to define, delineate, classify, and attribute populations, and linkage of keys between businesses, ownership, buildings, geography, and such. So the business demographic data source for business demographic data, business register dissemination, business counts data by employment, industry, and geography. Any of our partners or regional offices that have dealt with us before would know that's what we're known for, our business counts, which I'll go into more detail afterwards. So external clients, that would be most of the people I'm sure currently in this webinar. So for external clients, we offer data products, including the Canadian Business Counts, which is the biannual release of data that occurs once in June and once in December. And I do want to point out, I've seen a couple questions go by, but I'll just answer them at the end of the presentation. So I haven't forgot about those. Mary will help me follow up on that. So we also have custom requests, and this is any requests that aren't included in our standard business counts that are available to everyone. So this could be by a variety of geographies, NAICS codes, as well as our employment size range, revenue ranges, etc. We have microdata requests and NAICS requests, and I'll speak about those a little more in a moment. So the standard tables on the web is currently the business location counts by industry, province, Canada, and employment size range. Just this year, we included a third table, which is CSD within CMAs. Due to a lot of interest in those specific geographies, we're always looking to have more free data out there in the open, that we created the CSD with the CMAs that are included within those CSD tables. So that would be available to everybody through the Statistics Canada website. The custom tables would be enterprise, establishment, and location counts, pre-employment groupings, and we have the geographies, as well as the NAICS levels, and the other variables, which include business type and profit, non-profit, as well as employment and revenue ranges. So other data and services, requests requiring discretionary disclosures. So any provincial or federal government department may qualify to have this data depending on the use of their data. If it's for research and analysis, it would usually fall under these orders. If you ever have a request of that nature, just talk to us and we'll figure it out. The microdata request and what is available is the legal and operating name, address, NAICS, employment size range, the standard geography codes, and more info on certain occasions such as BN, depending how the data will be used. And this is all based on our ability to release this info from the Statistics Act and our joint work with CRA and the Income Tax Act. Access to information, the NAICS requests, so businesses can collect their NAICS codes by contacting the BR. We used to change NAICS codes too, but now we have other procedures in place to do that, and we just would provide the code. Other ways to access BR data. We have the Data Liberation Initiative, which is most of the participating post-secondary, so that would be universities and colleges, have access to a lot of this more custom data I was referencing, so data by the CDs, CSDs, and different geographies. And we also have 3 research data centers in the National Capital Region right now, where you would be able to be deemed a temporary employee of StatsCan if you meet the criteria and be able to look at some more detailed data. And we also have media information. That's the work we do with the media. They publish many things related to our business register data. So now a very exciting, well, I guess topical part of the presentation is the COVID-19 impacts. So unfortunately, our current counts cannot be used to measure the impacts of the pandemic. After a lot of internal discussion, we decided that was due to the reason that it would be very hard to differentiate between a permanent business closure and a temporary one, as many businesses would declare that they're closed, but they would not be sure whether they're going to reopen at what time. So that's why currently we do not have the impact of the COVID-19. That is the great impact it has on the economy. It's not reflected through our accounts, although in the new year we will be making some changes with that as we see the more businesses that have reopened compared to the ones that are permanently closed. The business register was also used by several departments, including the Prime Minister's office, to help with the response. This was pretty exciting for us to be part of the frontline response to that and be able to provide some data to the PMO office as well as many different municipalities and provincial governments. And some of the projects we helped with was the long-term care facilities project. This was very important right on the onset in April. We provided some data as well as the geospatial information of the hardest hit regions. And we're constantly looking to have more data created to use our data in different ways with the whole impact relief effort. So releases in the media. Business registers data is shown in the media, including social media and traditional. The Canadian Business Counts, as I discussed before, in June and December. The article released in the daily Statistics Canada's data release portal, and then we have 3 tables released on the website, and we also have a social media campaign. So here's just an example of one of the pages. Okay, that this would be one of the releases that we had for, this was the 2019 flood. So sometimes we have ad hoc releases based on important current events. And the media using business register data, business data as support. The Montreal Gazette, for example, had Quebecers Love to Eat at Restaurants, an article published based on our information. And there was a MasterCard, launches your MasterCard, small business education, that was also used through it. And from social media to mainstream media, we had a lot of popularity with our bar data and our restaurant data from a few years back, and some variety of sources such as Twitter and Instagram and everything that Statistics Canada data would be shared on. This is just an example of the Quebec article. I'll just leave this here if anyone wants to look after, and the MasterCard. And this would be, I never knew this, but Canada has a Reddit page, so just some comments from the Reddit page. Our bar data, here's another article published in Quebec that for our bar data, and just a little funny tidbit about that. I guess to no one's surprise, there would be many more bars in Quebec compared to Ontario, as well as full-service restaurants. Ontario is more known for fast food. So if anyone's interested in this data, we do have it on a previous data release. I could send that your way. And this is just another example of our actual data release. This is our June 2018 Canadian Business Counts release. It's really interesting and fun to be part of all these different media stories. They often contact us for some comments and for some information. So here's just some other examples. And lastly, about the Data Service Center, so how to contact us. The Data Service Center offers to data users a complex range of services. The Data Service Center assists data users with simple and free data requests, technical and methodological questions. With complex requests requiring research, extraction, or customization of data from multiple sources, and by producing customized reports, analysis, and maps, by offering standardized and customized workshops for all levels of expertise, and through various outreach activities such as webinars, newsletters, presentations, and information sessions. So to contact us, there is a 1-800 number, and there's also the InfoStats mailbox. That's just on the bottom of this page. That would be contacting the data center, and many times, of course, they'll get directly in touch with me and my team, so you may be talking to us directly. And that would be the end of my presentation. So I'll let Mary facilitate if there's any questions.
Yeah, we do have a few questions. That's great. Thanks, Adam. So our first question is, does the businesses without employees mean self-employed only or self-employed plus one other?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? Or I think actually I see it. Does the business without employees mean self-employed only or self-employed plus others? That's a good question. So it would mean that they would have 0 reported employees. So sometimes if it's a partnership, there might be a few people that work there, but they would all have an ownership stake in it, meaning that they wouldn't be reported as an employee of the company or reported through PD7.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
What's that, sorry?
Okay, and then, sorry, my audio, I guess, is pretty bad today. So, Adam, maybe I'll just let you go through. There's starting there, then there's a few questions from Andrea, and then one from Tim,
yeah.
if you want to just follow along in that chat.
Okay, yeah, Andrea and Tim, I see them. Perfect, thank you. So can you talk through the difference between establishment and location counts? Sure, Andrea. That's a question we get a lot, actually. So there would be the three main types of counts: the location, establishment, and enterprise counts. And the way I like to look at this is that location counts would be the actual operating location. So anywhere where a business occurs that would fall under a location account, many businesses only have a single account, so they would fall under all three different levels. Now, if you're a complex business and you have different structures, an establishment account would be able to report the income as well as the employees of all the businesses under it. And then an enterprise account would be the top of the chain, which would be often a head office, but it would be the top of the legal structure. So for an example, if you have a, let's just say a random number company that owns 10 different franchises, it could be of anything, it could be Tim Hortons. So if the random company owns the 10 different locations, but all the information is being reported at the top, then the enterprise level would be the numbered company. They may have an establishment level that's separate, that only owns a few locations. So we'll say in this case there's two different establishment levels that report all the employees and revenue below them. And then the actual locations of the Tim Hortons, although they're not separate legal entities, they would be under the location count. So all 10 of the restaurants would fall under that. And that would be the difference between our accounts. That's why the location counts are always a little higher, but they're also relatively similar because most of the businesses do indeed just have a one entity level. So the location count in enterprise is just a simple single. It just counts for one. And lastly, Tim's question. Many regional and single-tier municipalities in Ontario undertake their own employment survey due to, I'll just slip a bit, with the stats, due to undertake the employment survey due to limitations with the StatsCan business register. There's a lot of overlap here. Has StatsCan discussed how we might be able to improve the survey to meet the needs of the region? My apologies for reading that question. There was just new comments being written, so I was kind of scrolling down. So this is a good point that we often are dealing with different levels and with discussion, because we do encourage to be on the same page and to also share data when it's available to be shared if the criteria is met. So specifically, he's wondering if there's been any new updates on how to meet the needs of the regions through this data. So I guess the best answer I'd have for that is we would have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. So before, especially any of our aggregate data we are able to share much easier than anything that would have confidential variables. So if there are different regions that are creating similar data, they can always contact us and they can share the process, like their methodology of how they come across their data. And we can see if there's a lot of similarities, or if there's certain times too we engage in different partnerships. I know currently we have a deal with all the focal point provinces that we share them some data with every data release. So we're always looking for ways that we could have our data out to more people and also at the same time prevent overlap in doing the same thing and kind of producing similar data. So I would recommend Tim or anyone else just to contact us, and we can look at this case-by-case basis and see what we can do with that. Okay, and let me know, Mary, when you want me to stop with questions. I'll keep going until you jump in. I see there's a few more.
Sure, Adam, there was actually, Andrea had two questions, so you answered the first one, and the second one was, how can the Canadian Business Counts data be used in the, quote, hardest hit regions, end quote, use case you mentioned?
Okay, so specifically with that, they would want to, for the data we provide, and a lot of these things are joint projects, so it wouldn't just be my division that would be working, but the Canadian business counts can be used. Right now, I would say, because our current counts, if you're just looking at our counts and not linking it with anything else, that you would need to look at our next data release that it shows the impacts of COVID-19. So currently, our numbers reflect how it was before. And then the hardest hit regions, once we release our next release in the December 2020, that data, which will come out in February, then we're hoping at that point we'll have an idea of the COVID-19 impacts, and you can actually start comparing numbers from that period to the previous numbers that didn't have the COVID-19 influence. Of course, there always can be other economic reasons for these declines, and I don't want to I don't want to analyze them all in general terms, but there's certain hard-hit regions for sure that this will be a good starting off point to seeing the impacts. All right. I have John's question below. Can you elaborate on how you are going to look into COVID recovery impacts that you mentioned in the new year? So that question was kind of answered before, but we do also have different projects we've been looking at right now. Some of them are just in the early phases, just in the kind of brainstorming. Other ones we're moving forward with a little more. We do plan on releasing, I know some other Statistics Canada divisions have released these timely surveys about business closures. We are planning on releasing specific data about the business closures coming out as early as March 2021. So we're hoping to get not just business closures, but also to find out the date of when they closed, like retroactively if it was earlier during this year during the COVID wave, as well as we're going to focus on different industries and just see if see the impact it has on based on the NAICS code and the industries. So we're going to look at a few different things on the business closures, and there are some other projects that we're hoping to look into also. So Elizabeth had a follow-up question. Do you have any advice on when is best to turn to employment survey versus the business register? Well, a lot of these employment surveys would be very specific, so they would have information that wouldn't be available through our standard business counts. They often focus on month-by-month data. And basically, if there's any employment survey that's done through, of course, Statistics Canada, that most of these would actually work with our business register data, but then they would also work with their survey data and other tools they have available. So if there's anything specific to of all these surveys to the field that you're interested in, I definitely recommend looking at those with our business counts, but those can be considered a primary resource for sure. So Kylie has asked, what are some of the confidential variables? So some of the confidential variables that we can release to federal and provincial departments, if they meet the requirements, would be legal name, addresses, phone numbers of the respondents, emails, as well as the business number, the NAICS code attached with the legal name, that's what makes it confidential, and employment and geography information. And on the rare occasion, revenue, but that would be harder to obtain. And then I see Michael has a question. Yes, to be clear, microdata requests can be only filled by provincial and federal government departments. And that's unfortunate limitation with the Statistics Act that we have. With that in the Stats Act, we have special approval to work with the different government levels, but we don't have that same approval to provide this confidential data to any private company. All right, so I see just one more question, and if I missed anything, let me know, Mary, but what is the typical data lag associated with the business register? How long after a business closes does it take it to be removed from the register? So that is a good question, and it may vary a bit by business, but we do have a lot of automatic processes that would occur if a business hasn't reported any revenue or any GST sales, anything like that within a year. Our business register, most of the automatic processes would inactivate that business. There are some exceptions, but there are also, that's one way that we make a lot of businesses inactive at the same time. But we also do have specific surveys throughout the different subject matter specialists that would indicate that businesses have closed. So if we get a survey on a case-by-case basis, we'll update our business register with that information. And some people actually contact us personally, just like our NAICS letter request. They'll contact us in a statement of closure. That's not very common because not everyone wants to be that proactive, especially with Statistics Canada. We don't have the same requirements as the CRA, but they may contact us directly. So the lag on average, though, I would say would be about a year, unless they have contacted us and told us that their business accounts have closed. And Paul has a question of, do data sharing agreements under the Stats Act with federal and provincial governments also cover municipal governments? That's a good question. It does on occasion cover the municipal governments, but it seems to be more on a case-by-case basis. That's why we like to say it's federal and provincial level data, but there are certain uses with municipal governments where they can get this data. So I won't say it doesn't fall under that, but it's just a little harder to obtain for the municipal government. But feel free to contact us once again. We would love to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for following the presentation.
Thank you very much, Adam, and thanks for taking all those questions. Hopefully you can hear me now. We're going to switch from Adam over to Nicole now. So Nicole, I'll let you get your screen up. Adam is going to stick around, so feel free to keep typing questions in for him, and we can always have him address questions as they come up. And I will mute myself so you can hear Nicole.
Thanks, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Sorry, I was typing, but Nicole's not going to be able to see your screen, so I will be interrupting.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to see. So I will, any questions we'll just leave to the end, as with Adam. So I just want to thank the Community Data Program for providing me the opportunity to showcase what we do here at Calgary Economic Development with business counts analysis. And I have a lot to show you, so I'm going to be moving really, really fast. From the poll, I saw we have a lot of attendees today who have a high level of knowledge. So I'm not going to cover some of the more basic stuff, so I'm going to make some assumptions there. Firstly, just a quick overview where to find the business counts. On the Community Data Program website, under the Find Data tab, here's Canadian business counts in the product group. You would choose that from the drop-down menu. And then we have a long list of business count files, the biannual files. So I actually closely watch for the release and check the website about a month after the end of the year and mid-year, to try to see, well, I guess a little bit more than a month, to try to get the data file as soon as possible. When you choose one of the files, actually I'll go back because, this is good. Just to note that there's two different files, one for provinces, census division, census subdivision, and then there's another Beyond 2020 file for CMAs. And census agglomerations and census tracts. This page actually has really great information about business counts, so I'd encourage everybody, if you're not if you don't have a high level of skill, to scan this page. It does cover, Adam covered some of this information in his presentation today. On the Statistics Canada website, you can search for business counts on the data tab, and just type in business counts and the keyword. All the data files will come up. So Statistics Canada releases data files semi-annually, and if you want Canada and provinces, business counts for Canada and provinces before the semi-annual data files are posted to the Community Data Program website, you can come here to Statistics Canada website, except for you're not going to get smaller geographies on the Statistics Canada website. So we do use both. I do track both. Sometimes it's easier to get it was easier in previous years to get the Canada data on the Statistics Canada website. And now I'm just gonna move to the Beyond 2020 files. We have naming conventions, so I make sure I save them so I know what the correct geographies are. The analysis we do uses establishment counts, although we might be better in some cases to run analysis on the location counts. And so Beyond 2020 is great for manipulating all the different dimensions. So here I've already pulled up, I've already opened the file and pulled up Calgary Census Metropolitan Area geography. It's really good to be comfortable with not only the English descriptions or text descriptions, but the numerical codes for all the census geographies for the business counts. We actually look at business counts for census metropolitan areas, and on occasion census subdivision, census tract, and in the past we purchased forward sortation area. Could somebody, I have some feedback, and everybody ensure they've muted their speakers, please. So here, Calgary Economic Development, we're fairly interested in business counts for our key sectors, and I'll kind of get into later what our key sectors are. But here you can see I pulled up business counts by 2-digit NAICS codes. If I scroll down on the right, you can see the slider, how the numerical code advances. I can get to 3-digit, I can go to 4-digit, and then 5-digit NAICS codes. Oh, sorry, 6-digit NAICS codes. What's interesting is, oops, I'm in the wrong dimension here. So the wrong dimension. For census tracts, I want to show everybody how you get those census tract. Let's put it there for now. And it's not working. Usually, when you're on the census, census division, you can pull up the census tracts. So it's not working for me right now, so I'm just going to move on, and hopefully it'll come to me later how to remember how to do that again. But that's actually becomes really, really important. Oh, select dimension. Thank you. Show all. No, yeah, and oh, here we go. Thank you. So census tract becomes important when you want to look at smaller geographies in your community. And we need to do that in Calgary when we want to look at downtown Calgary. When I'm running business counts, I actually try to maintain consistency in the view that I use. So I'm always going to put my NAICS on the left and my employees on the right, and that's important when I'm running analysis. It's because all our data files have the same structure. But so I highly recommend when you're running analysis over a period of time that you maintain the structure. It's just easier to paste your data in and keep your data up to date. It's important to note when we're running analysis for Calgary, we usually are not just running analysis for Calgary. We're interested in comparing Calgary to all the other major cities across Canada. So I'm not going to really speak too much more about Beyond 2020 files. I'm going to make the assumption that everybody knows how to export and manipulate the different dimensions. So with our business counts file, Here's just one file, all of our economic indicators for business. We do run a per capita, small businesses per capita analysis, Calgary versus other major cities across Canada. One thing to note, Statistics Canada's definition of small business is 1 to 99, businesses with 1 to 99 employees, but that definition does not make sense for a smaller market like Calgary. And so our definition of small business is 1 to 49 employees. And I'm just gonna go to the historical tab here. These are the population estimates. Oh, it opened a file I didn't want. So I run different analysis tabs. I have analysis tabs, chart tabs, historical tabs. It's just easier having the analysis automatically update. Oh. Sorry, and what I mean by that is at the end of our files, I keep the master business counts for Calgary for the biannual data sets, and I have all the way to 6-digit here. And that structure, if we maintain the integrity of that structure for every release, then it's really easy to go and update the analysis. I'm not going to get too in depth in kind of all the variety of analysis that we do.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
Just in this one file, I'm running small business per capita analysis. I'm running experimental business counts analysis. I'm running businesses by industry, which you can see here. I'm running business counts by industry over the past 10 years. I don't publish this. This is just it's just of interest, because longitudinal analysis is not recommended with business counts. We would do year over year, or every 6 months over 6 months comparison. And from this pie chart, you can see I've segmented all the business counts by just this column here, all the business counts by industry. And then we go deeper, we'll go business counts by employee size, and then we'll go even deeper, business counts by employee size by industry. And why we run all this particular analysis is because we produce this small business fact sheet, and we post that to our website. And I'll just give you an example of this is a fact sheet we produce on small business. So small business by number of employees, small businesses by industry and employee size. And I was getting questions about the impact of COVID-19. Well, as Adam said, it's hard to use business counts for to analyze the long-term impact of business change due to COVID-19. So, but I did include a new chart this year on business counts year-over-year change, and that's about as far historical trend we would look at. And then we also provide the small businesses per capita analysis. So another type of analysis we run is we look at the composition of downtown Calgary. Sorry about that. File. Just waiting for it to open. So here you can see this is downtown Calgary, and I have this little map. These are the census tracts of downtown Calgary. And how would you go get census tracts for your community? Well, on the Statistics Canada website, there's a census program data viewer for the 2016 census. And you can use this viewer to go, I want to, and you would select geographic level, and you would select census tract. I'm not going to do it now because I already have Calgary selected, census tract selected. And I can zoom in, and I know what downtown Calgary, the shape of downtown Calgary looks like. So I can just zoom in and hover. If I hover over that area, census tract area, a little pop-up comes up, and I can note this code 4601. But this is for Calgary Census Metropolitan Area, the beginning code is 825. So when I'm in Beyond 2020, oops. I'm not having luck today with my manipulation and I can pull the slider all the way down to 8250041, and I can grab the counts for that census tract. And so I've taken all the codes for the Calgary downtown, and now I've run analysis of business counts for all the downtown Calgary census tracts. And what this does is we can kind of identify percentage of or distribution of industries in Calgary's downtown, and chart this data. And I provide this data to the City of Calgary, and we use it in our downtown Calgary snapshot, a quarterly snapshot of what the composition of Calgary industries in Calgary's downtown looks like. So that's census data program. Census data viewer. We also use these, the downtown Calgary business counts for key performance indicators for our economic strategy, the 10-year economic strategy for Calgary called Calgary in the New Economy. We often want to know what the composition of not just the downtown Calgary, but Calgary looks like. Having high percentage of professional, scientific, and technical services is a indicator, a high proportion of professional, scientific, and technical services businesses is an indicator of a growing economy. And I run this analysis kind of year over year. We had also purchased...
Nicole, you've got about 5 more minutes left.
Okay, thank you. So we'd also purchased business counts by forward sortation area, or a 3-digit postal code. And so we have run analysis in the past on that, but we just found census tract was more granular. But for your communities, your areas and your regions, you can get these FSA files from Statistic Canada. So earlier in the presentation, I mentioned the key sectors. And often, even though there is, say, agribusiness as an industry, but for a city like Calgary, there's other industries involved in agribusiness than just a couple, just NAICS 11. So, for example, we have our own definition of agribusiness, and we've included manufacturing industries. We actually even have an even broader definition, including food services and retail retail businesses. And so here you can see we've tracked this definition of Calgary's agribusiness sector. We've tracked for the past 5 years, but again, we're not really looking at a historical trend here. We're just looking at kind of if there's been any growth over the past year, and it's kind of interesting. So we have these Calgary economic definitions for energy, financial services, manufacturing. So your communities, you can make your own definitions. You can broaden the definitions for some sectors. You know, business counts are great at looking at businesses by industry, but what business counts can't do is they can't provide you business counts by, like for the tech sector, for example, because the NAICS is not, there are no NAICS definitions for what tech is. There's a ICT variant for NAICS, so you can look at ICT business counts, but you know, we can't look at biotech, for example. What are the number of businesses in biotech using business counts? And some of the how we provide business counts externally to the public? Well, we post that. I include a lot of that charts and analysis in the business section of Why Calgary, Our Economy in Depth. We post the total number of business counts in Calgary on this economic indicators dashboard. We post that small business fact sheet I showed you earlier to our website. The business section of Why Calgary, it might be easier to show you all the analysis we run instead of in the Excel spreadsheet in this section of Why Calgary, Our Economy in Depth. So we have businesses by industry, businesses by employee size, small businesses per capita across Canada. That's it. One other thing, currently I'm following the experimental business counts produced by Statistic Canada. That was just released this year. And, you know, I was looking at opening businesses and closing businesses month over month, just to see if there's any change. But you know, these are currently not very reliable, and we're not, you know, posting anything externally about experimental business counts. I'm just tracking it for curiosity's sake. But I thought it was interesting to let everybody know that these are available on the Statistics Canada website. And yeah, that's it for today. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much,
if there's
Nicole.
any questions,
I'll just ask you to mute so that. Great, thanks. Nicole, we do have one question for you from Elizabeth. You can probably see it up there now, but she's wondering, what have you found to be the most impactful metric or analysis to look at while using the business counts? Great, thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's a challenging question. Well, definitely business counts by industry or business counts by Calgary industries. Because we're not so interested in businesses by employee size. And definitely the best use of business counts is looking at downtown Calgary census tracts. It's very interesting to see the to take snapshots to see what the composition is every 6 months. It doesn't change very much, but it's of interest. You know, there's not a lot of data sources out there for tracking change in businesses over time. There's business counts, and then the City of Calgary has their business licenses open data set. I also have a share with, or the City of Calgary shares with me metrics on business licenses. And so, I get questions of, how many businesses have we lost due to COVID-19? Well, or, what has been the change year over year? So I only have business counts, business licenses, and then insolvencies data from the Office of Superintendency Canada. And that's it.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so if there are any more questions for Nicole, sorry, Nicole, I'm just going to mute you. If there are any more questions for Nicole, please feel to type them in. Maybe Nicole, you could actually just type in answers to the chat box because I do want to keep moving. Tiffany from County of Simcoe is going to share how she works with Canadian business counts. So hopefully this is giving you guys a really good idea of the actual work and watching your colleagues and how they would be flipping through using StatsCan and Canadian business counts, and then what they were actually producing at the end. So without any more of me, go ahead, Tiffany.
Thanks, Mary. Hi, everyone. So at the County of Simcoe, we are using the Canadian business counts for two main purposes at this time. The first is to feed into our economic base analysis, which is an important part of the county's economic development strategic plan. And the second is to inform data requests from our member municipalities and potential investors. So the economic base analysis, which right now is in the process of getting approval, so I can't really show you. But we're using Canadian business counts for that to evaluate some changes or the size of the industries and how which industries we've got competitive advantage in. This can indicate some of the sector strengths that we have in the area. So it can be used, in comparison to the residents who indicated that they work in the industries, for example, in the census at the same time, to see, if there will be, for example, a lot of people that say that they work in the manufacturing industry, but we don't have very many people, very many employment opportunities, or if, from one census year to the other, we've got a huge increase in employment in one sector, but we've got a small sector, we can look at addressing those gaps if there's any. So sharing my screen here, we're looking at the Beyond 2020 file. I actually am working with location counts by CSD, just because what we're using this for, this example will be a data request by a potential investor. So the reason I would use location counts for that is when you're trying to market your municipality, it's advantageous to show location counts because it'll show more. So that's how I've been using it. So here I've pulled up the County of Simcoe already, and then we've got our NAICS codes, but this doesn't really show me a great picture, so I'm just going to take, I'm just gonna kind of manipulate it a little bit. So the example that I'm going to use is an investor coming to us, and they'll say, okay, well, I want to settle in the North Simcoe, and they want some assistance with some market research for a barging operation, just for example. So under NAICS, I'm just going to search for, I've already got it pasted here, for inland water transportation. And then I'm just going to switch my view so that I can see all of the census divisions and subdivisions across the top and the business sizes across the side. And then I'm going to scroll over to Simcoe County to start. here. And so in this very, very specific 6-digit NAICS code, in all of Simcoe, there's only one, as of the June 2020 business count, there's only one company that's doing it, and it's located in Innisfil, which is, for those who aren't aware, Innisfil is actually not in North Simcoe. So what I would do is then I would go to my map, and I would see if they want to be located in North Simcoe. So this outline here is Simcoe County, and this is the North Simcoe. So we want to look at comparisons outside of Simcoe, but on Georgian Bay. So for example, Muskoka. So if I go back to this area, I can look at some of the other areas and see, like, there's zeros basically across the board. There's one in Lake of Bays. There's one in Gravenhurst as well. So it's pretty much non-existent. So we share this information with the investor, and then this can lead to just this conclusion that there's not much competition for this specific company if they located in Simcoe County, and specifically in North Simcoe. And for them, that would prompt some questions like, why is that? Is it because there's no competition? Like, is there no competition because there's no market? Or is there no competition because they're first to market, or some other factor? But this just kind of helps them with their market research, and helps them understand where, how much competition, where they're going into. And even more specifically, you can look at the size of the competition that you have, and how big they are. So without providing, obviously, confidential information, you can have a look and sort of see how many of these businesses exist, and help create a business case for somebody to come and settle into your municipality. So if there's any questions whatsoever, go ahead and let me know. I don't have much more to add at this point. That's basically the main thing. We also get questions from our member municipalities that that we help answer with these numbers.
Great, thank you, Tiffany.
Great.
So what we can do now is, if you have any questions for any three of our presenters, or if you have any questions for Mike about Canadian business counts and getting it out of our catalog and how you would search it, we can also cover any of those questions as well. We'll just give everybody a minute. I know this is quite a flash of information on this data set. I'm really hoping this will sort of encourage you to go in and take a look at it. All right, now we wait while the little dots come up as we wait for comments and questions to come up in our chat box. So we do record this presentation, and so it's going to be available on our website. It takes us a few days to process it and get it posted up there. We'll also have Adam's slides there for your reference if you'd like to go back and check those out. And Adam, there's a question for you. Do you see it on your screen? Adam, I don't hear you. You might be muted. You might need to press *6 on your phone.
Mainly see
Everybody else here, Adam?
in the chat.
Okay, so not just me. Sorry, we are having some audio issues. Adam, can you go ahead and type?
All guests have been unmuted.
Adam, can you type your response to Kylie's question in the chat box?
At the bottom of the chat, I'm only seeing Nicole answering a question about CTs.
Okay, hang on.
And I don't know if it's just a problem with my browser, but I don't see anything below.
Locations of businesses if the data is stripped of other confidential info.
Oh, okay. Location of businesses. It depends how specific you have to go through all those measures. Even if you see that to aggregate data,
Sorry about this, folks. We are having some audio problems. What I am going to do is, with permission of all of our presenters, I'm going to share their email addresses with you. And there they are coming up in your chat box for Adam, oh, hang on a second, they're coming through weird. Of course, I'll put them through separately. And all of them are welcome to take your questions. So if you do have something specific you'd like to follow up with, please feel free to email them directly. Okay, and there's Tiffany. And there's Nicole Mullings. Okay, so please feel free to make note of those and you can follow up. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much to all our presenters for getting into this data set. I really appreciate that you've taken the time. I think it's helpful to look at this, especially as we go forward. I know people are going to be interested in looking at this further. I do encourage you to check in with Adam if you're looking at this data set over the next few releases, looking at COVID and looking at the changes to the locations of businesses in your communities. Just check in and make sure that you're using them appropriately and in a helpful way. And this is definitely something that we will be checking in on and releasing information and tips as we see can be helpful as well. I also want to encourage anybody who is interested in more about Canadian Business Counts and also about our Tableau software that we've started to use in-house and that many of you are also using for your work. November 24th is our next webinar, and it's going to be looking at doing more with Tableau. And we're actually going to focus on one of our members, Emilian, who actually works with Canadian Business Counts in Tableau. So if that is helpful for you, watch your emails because you're going to be receiving an invitation for that webinar by the end of this week. And again, that's on November 24th. So thank you so much to everybody for attending. Sorry about our audio hiccups. I'm glad we got through most of our presentations. And once again, please feel free to follow up with those presenters with your more specific questions. Thanks, everyone.